I have an amazing session to intro today, but can't believe it's already day 5, year 5, session 2 of the day. A few sessions left. Really excited and happy about this TMF week. I think it's been absolutely amazing. Kudos to our team and all the speakers. You guys have all done an absolutely amazing job. So as I said, session 2 of day 5, a little bit of housekeeping. I know we'll get asked, but the presentation will be available, or is available, in the docs section. All of the recordings, including this one, will be available in the platform. So if you guys want to log back in at any time, go see any of the sessions you missed, including this one, all of the recordings will be available. Questions along the way. If you want to chat, let us know where you're dialing in from. Put some questions in the Q&A. Maybe Karen will pick a few during the presentation. If not, we'll tackle them at the end. And then obviously we'll have a networking break right after this. So about 30 minutes of Karen and Paul, who will join in a few minutes, of this wonderful presentation. We'll have some Q&A. Like I said, I'll intro the next session, and then we'll head over to the networking lounge for the last little bit of networking that we'll have for this week. But without further ado, I will hand it off to Karen for what I initially thought when I went through my hosting duties for the week. I'm like, ooh, this could be a dry presentation, but I saw what we have in store for you. It's not dry. It's anything but dry. I think it's going to be a great presentation, a lot of fun. And on that, Karen, I will hand it off to you. It's enough of me and my dogs.
Thank you, Chris. And I'm sure I can see a picture of your dogs at some stage. Brilliant. Hi, everybody. I'm very happy to be presenting. This one's going to be easier than the last one that Jamie Toast got me involved in. So hopefully this can just be a little bit of fun, but also a really exciting opportunity to talk about our community. There's so many of you that have been here on during TMF week, and really to bring everybody together, and maybe those of you who haven't been to conferences, to give you a little bit of a feel about who we are as a community. We're a family. There's no doubt about it. And I'm going to hide the backstage because all I can see are these people like waving their arms around. So there we are. Right. Okay. So let's talk a little bit. First of all, what I would love you to do, guys, is as I go through these slides, comment if you've been to the conferences, if you've been involved, so people can see about the community and how much fun we do have. So my first sort of starting point is really where did it start from? Where did it start from? And this is where it started from. So, Karen, I see your comment involved. Yes. So TMF, too much fun. So TMF, too much fun, was coined many years ago. I'm sure many of you use it and you think, where on earth does that come from? Well, actually, it came from a lady called Fran Ross, and we've all borrowed it. And then this mug on the left-hand side was actually created by the lady who ran the TMF at Sanofi for every single person there. So anybody at the conference, when it was myself and Eric Rubinson and Ivan Walrath that chaired the conference, we were a little bit more serious there. We didn't have Jamie involved yet, but that was a really good conference. So the next one.
Off to see the wizard, the wonderful Wizard of Oz. With him, he is the Wizard of Wiz, if ever a Wizard was.
So, Wizard of Oz. Who came to the Wizard of Oz? That was the first time that I think we started off by having a little bit of fun. And we can be very serious with TMF, but we can also enjoy ourselves. And if you can have a good laugh about things, it makes life so much easier and better. And it was a fantastic, thank you, Kimberly, brilliant. It was a fantastic conference where we really started to, as I said, to bring us all together as a community. Then there was the Maleficent. There was all the Disney characters. Mary Christine in the middle, who is now retired on the Spanish coast or in Boston, and Jamie and Grace and Wendy Beebe. So a fabulous bunch of people. Again, pretty serious topics, but fun to introduce. Then, of course, what happened? Well, then we had COVID. So what happened? We all went online. And this is amazing because I do think that TMF Week has something that's come out of what we went through with COVID. And we've realized we can actually bring us all together and have a bit of a laugh and enjoy things online. It doesn't have to be in person. There was, of course, the challenge where everybody went to New Orleans. And when everybody went to New Orleans, I wasn't allowed to go because I was in England and those people in the States were in the States. So I had to, unfortunately, just be online watching you guys. And then we had our conference in Copenhagen and where the TMF took off with CDISC. This was our very, very first conference with CDISC. And we were starting to explore what our future was going to be. Then who was in?
There once was a ship that put
Who was in Baltimore? Because that was a brilliant conference. We're a very serious bunch of people. So, no, seriously, I obviously can't just spend the whole afternoon reminiscing about how much fun we had. Seriously, where did we start from? Where did we start from? Well, we started from paper. There's no doubt about it that that's where we started from. And we brought together the TMF reference model where most of us were using paper. So for those of you who are new to the TMF reference model group, you might not know the history. So this is the history of the TMF reference model. And this is the serious piece, of course, where we started as part of the DIA. So we were part of the EDM reference model, document and records management group, and they said to us, could you just look at the standardized documents that you get in a TMF, please? And we said, yeah, no problem at all. Shouldn't take us too long. Well, it did. It grew and grew, and we got so many people involved. Our initial meeting was in 2009. We had our first version of the reference model released in 2010. I mean, that is 14 years ago. That's pretty shockingly long time ago. But so much has happened since then. And what I think is interesting as you look across the 14 years is the fact that we've actually gone from being something that people objected to, that thought it was going to be, there's no way we're going to standardize and bring everybody together, to suddenly we are the de facto standard. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the future in a bit as well. So, the first release, 2010, actually went out to regulators. So we sent it out to Andy Fisher at the MHRA, and we sat down with the FDA. And we had Cynthia Kleppinger was the lady, and Anne, somebody, I can't remember her surname. We sat down and we went through it. And, whilst they didn't say they would openly, vividly support it. It's been mentioned by the regulators over many, many years, and we're actually getting there now. Anyway, multiple releases between 2011 and 2013. We put in a bit about the investigators, a bit about devices. We put in some process stuff. We put in some different work groups. We started producing different deliverables, which are all on the website, on the CDISC website, if you need them. In 2013, 2014, we separated from the DIA. And when I say separated, it was a very pleasant separation. It was just that the DIA can't own product. CDISC started in DIA, so did the reference model. And so we became just the TMF reference model. And if I had £1 for everybody, every time someone said the DIA reference model to me, I would be very rich, because that's what everybody always talks about, the DIA reference model. So in 2014, we became a bit more formal, and we had a steering committee. The steering committee consisted of about 14 people, and we started governing it properly, as opposed to sort of being a little bit haphazard until then. We released the exchange mechanism, which was for interoperability. Been a long road with the exchange mechanism, but we're going to talk a little bit about the future and where we're going in standards and things in a little while. We had version 3 come out. Version 3 was a huge exercise because we had a complete review across the board. And it's really important for me to mention that because of what's going to happen in the future. And then in 2021, we started to say, well, what are we going to do about the future? So we started to say, well, actually what we really want is a database. We want a database where we can put the reference model so that we can pull the information out. Very funnily, I was talking to somebody who was completely out of our industry and trying to explain what I did. And this person turned around to me and said, it's an Excel spreadsheet. I said, yeah, it's an Excel spreadsheet. And that's at the moment what it is. It's massive amount of input, but in an Excel spreadsheet. So we decided we needed it to go into a database. We needed it to be something that could be queried technically, etc. So we said, right, okay, we need to go and try and find. And Paul and Kathy Clark tried to build a database for us to do, and we realized that actually it was too much. We needed money, we needed effort, we needed time. So we actually went out to look for a partner. And we wanted a partner who would keep it free and available to everybody. We wanted somebody who was non-biased. We wanted somebody who was a standards body so that we could move towards being a standard. And we found CDISC. Dave Evans was CEO at the time, and his vision was to incorporate other aspects of the clinical space other than the data, which CDISC has traditionally been. And we fitted into his vision perfectly. It's been a very exciting journey. I, as the current chair of the TMF Reference Model, I sit on the CDISC board, so I get very involved in what's going on. CDISC has also got a couple of very interesting initiatives around digital data flow. And so it's helping everything drive forward to become a standard and to become more embedded in the industry. So that's sort of how we got here. For anybody, if anyone's got any questions, by the way, throw them in Q&A. And I've just pressed the wrong button. That doesn't work. So we are now part of CDISC. It's a global standards body, so we get that benefit. They've got an education team, so suddenly we've got a more formalized education offering. We've got a database that we can then put the TMF into. We've got frameworks for standards. We've got management for standards. We've got marketing and events. So suddenly we have this whole host of things around us. So it's very exciting, and it's very much the future. So we're charting a course for standardization. And I can't do this on my own. So I need to call out somebody to come and join me in TMF Valley in April 22 to talk about the future. So we're in the future. Hang on, whoa.
Oh, that was a rough ride. That was a rough ride.
We are now going to go into the future.
Can you see me okay, Karen? Can you see me?
I can see you. I can hear you. No problem at all. So, great Scott. It is. We're going to put the clock to 2025. And Paul Fenton, a.k.a. Biff. Unfortunately, I didn't put my dress on because actually...
Lorraine, what's going on?
Lorraine, it was just too much. But we are going to go into the future, and we're going to head off in our out-of-time car. And I'm thanking Jamie Toth for all these pictures because I just stole them. And we're going to land up in the TMF Valley in April 2025. So, Paul, over to you to talk about where we're going, what we're doing. Obviously, a little bit about today, but what's the future holding?
Exactly. Well, so welcome to 2024, Karen. I'm not sure where you were before, but we're definitely here now. So as you know, right now, the reference model is an Excel spreadsheet, and it's a great tool. You know, a lot of people, well, pretty much the whole industry is using it. But for us to be able to evolve and develop, additional aspects of the reference model, such as metadata and relationships and interoperability, and even to standardize the reference model, we need to have a better way of managing all of this information. And that's why, as Karen said, we decided to become part of CDISC. We joined CDISC in 2022, and at the end of the year in 2022, we actually set up a TMF Standards subgroup. And this subgroup had the and still has in fact, the mandate to take the reference model from being a de facto standard where people are just using it, because it's the best thing to use, and actually move it to a more formal standard where it's ratified and it's very structured and it's maintained in a very formal way. Now, to do this, it takes time, and we need to kind of set up, if you like, the reference model as a standard so that we can then evolve it. So we identified 4 different initiatives that we needed to put in place initially to start to move towards becoming a standard. So the first initiative was to look at the CDISC tools that they have to be able to manage standards. And the primary tool there is the CDISC library, and start to look at the Excel spreadsheet and model that into a format that would enable us to then migrate it into the CDISC library or potentially another application. And that's something that we're currently looking at. The other thing that we started to look at was how do we evolve the exchange mechanism standard and also interoperability, because there's a lot going on in that area, especially around digital data flow. The third area that we needed to work on was TMF Reference Model standard alignment and management. So putting in place all of the proper processes to manage it as a formal standard and try and leverage as much as possible the processes that were already in place within CDISC, because obviously they've been managing formal standards now for quite a few years. And so we wanted to benefit from their experience. And also, of course, because we are part of CDISC, we kind of need to follow the same process. And then finally, another thing that's really important with standards is controlled terminology, making sure that people are calling things in the same way. And so we also put in place a work stream around controlled terminology and alignment with ICH M11. And for those of you that don't know what that is, that's the new ICH guidance and standard for digital protocols. So we've been working now for around 1.5 years, and we've definitely made progress. We've defined our data model for the reference model once it becomes either part of the CDISC library or another application. We went through the whole of the reference model and actually defined controlled terminology, primarily for the definitions of each of the different artifacts. And we made sure that we were aligned with existing controlled terminology that was defined by the National Cancer Institute, who are in charge of that on behalf of CDISC. So we've now made sure that we're aligned with all of the other standards within CDISC that are also using the same terms as we are. And then finally, we've been speaking with the digital data flow team. And digital data flow, for those of you that don't know what it is, it's an initiative that was originally started by Transcelerate with the goal of being able to interoperate between different systems and also to be able to distribute a digital protocol to all of the downstream clinical systems so that they can all use the same parameters and more easily exchange information between them. And obviously TMF is kind of a big part of that, because TMF actually consumes a lot of data from lots of different systems within the clinical landscape. And so we've been in discussions for the last probably 1 year or so now about becoming part of the next phase of digital data flow, and that's something that we will do. So those are the things that we've been working on so far. Now, in terms of the standards alignment, so it's really important for us to be part of the CDISC landscape. And so we've been focusing a lot on how we fit into digital data flow, what are the various different use cases, and then also our goal is to also map the reference model to ICH M11 and the digital protocol. And so that's something that's underway, and I think is going to be very beneficial, because once we're able to map to digital protocol and we start to use digital protocols, we can use it to navigate the TMF by protocol. which is very interesting, but we can also use it to configure our TMF system somewhat, so that we know, what are the expected artifacts that we want to see based on study design. So it's a very sort of powerful thing for us, I think, in the future. So this slide is very busy, but it kind of shows the big picture of what we're working on and what we're looking at, and how we fit in. And I'm going to try my best at a high level to explain this slide. Obviously, this is also a session on Friday morning. You've had a very long week already, so I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I'll give you an idea. So at the heart of everything is M11 digital protocol. So if you haven't looked at this, go and have a look at it. It's kind of interesting. It's on the ICH website, and it's basically a standard to describe digital protocols that we can leverage to configure downstream clinical systems. This standard, ICH M11, also uses another standard called USDM. So it's Unified Study Definitions Model, which is something that is being developed by CDISC. And within this, we can describe all of the different aspects of the protocol. So, all of the visit schedules and all of those different things that we see typically in a protocol are all defined in this data model. Now, the clinical systems obviously hold data or artifacts that are TMF relevant. And I'm sure that all of you have struggled with this aspect of our work, where the monitoring visit reports are in the CTMS, and then you have safety reports in the pharmacovigilance system, and then you have information in your IRT for all of the drug distribution, and then maybe you also have information in the EDC system. So there's information that's relevant to the study and that needs to be visible within the TMF, but it's held in other systems. And so the idea is that through digital data flow, we can start to exchange information between these other clinical systems and the TMF. And so that's a big advantage in the future. And then, of course, as I mentioned previously, the digital protocol also allows us to extract parameters that we can use to, for example, establish our expected document list, and also allow us to navigate the TMF by protocol to be able to visualize all of the artifacts that relate to a specific part of the protocol. So if you're looking at, for example, the randomization section of the protocol, well, we should be able to visualize all of the different artifacts that relate to randomization. And so it becomes a lot easier then to sort of understand the study, but also be able to visualize the evidence that we're holding within the TMF to document that particular aspect of the study. So that's kind of more or less the global vision. It's actually fairly complex and quite difficult to explain in a short amount of time, like we have today. But you have my contact details, so if anyone's interested in learning more, please reach out to me, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. Over to you, Karen.
Thanks very much, Paul. There is one question you've got. Is M11 the start of regulators promoting standardized templates across the industry?
I think so. So right now, M11 is the starting point, because obviously protocol is kind of at the heart of everything. But I think that there could also be other documents that we produce which could follow a similar path. There's things like statistical analysis plan, or the clinical study report, or even some of our other plans as well that we use. So I think that there's definitely possibilities there. And I think in the future, in general, we're going to start to go much more towards digital documents and data, rather than having just sort of flat PDF files.
I agree with you, Paul. And I also think that the fact that ICH is working with CDISC and working with Transcelerate on this particular M11 thing, and there's control templates coming out of Transcelerate, etc. It feels like everyone's moving that way. Especially with ICH. You talked about control terminology and standardization, and ICH really partnering effectively with CDISC. I just think that the world is changing in that direction, and we're going to have to accept that. So that's brilliant. So I just wanted to run through a couple of extra pieces related to the reference model. But actually, before I'll talk about this, and then I'm going to finish with V4. And Paul, I'd love you to talk a little bit about V4 with you as well. So since we've been part of CDISC, we're still having fun. We're still having too much fun, but we're also in a more formal environment. So it's given us the ability, for example, to have this education team. We've got a module which is free on the introduction to the reference model. We've got the fundamentals of the reference model, which are being run in Scottsdale, in Arizona, in October, and virtually. We've got the TMF course, which is being put together. We've got the reference model for biometrics personnel, which has been put together. So there's just loads and loads and loads of stuff going on around sort of the education and CPD points and things like that. We've also got a couple of big initiatives. So we've got the risk initiative. This is going to be presented at the conference in Arizona as well. It was kicked off in December 23, and the white paper and the tools are due in October 24. And it's divided into three work streams and run by Joanne Malia, and looks at risk across the board. It's not just how to QC, it's also validation, the impact of risk in all the different areas. We've also got the ISF initiative, which I'm very excited about because we've left the investigative sites out for a long time. We had a little bit of it, but really wasn't, in my mind, it wasn't as solid as this, because this is being co-led by two people in this site space, two site personnel, and it's to look at it, developing a site reference model so that we can map it to the TMF reference model, and so that it can be used in a standardized way across the whole globe. Again, big presentations on this taking place at the interchange in Arizona. And the last but not least by miles is version 4. Boy, this has had a lot of discussion around version 4. We finally got to the place where the charter is finished. It may mean that we're in 2026 needing glasses like this by the time we actually get version 4 done. But we are looking at all the regulatory changes, full zone reviews. We're looking at standardizing sub-artifacts. We're looking at standardizing indexing and operational metadata. We're looking at having control terminology. We are going to need help. If anybody wants to get involved, please volunteer. We will come out to you. We are going to need a lot of help to get this done, because this is the first time we're really following the standards process, where it's going to go out for public review, etc., etc. And it's going to make and the other thing I'd say about version 4 is that we are going to be doing a massive session on version 4 hold on, I've got the wrong button. In Scottsdale, Arizona, 23rd, 24th of October. It's not just a fun town. It's not just going to be a fun place to be, but it's actually going to be a really important place to learn about version 4 and be part of it. And before I sort of move on from version 4, Paul, is there anything in the last, I don't know, about 75 seconds that you want to say about version 4 that I haven't covered?
I don't think so. I just think that it's a really big opportunity, and it's really laying the groundwork for the future. Because once we're able to standardize all of these things, and especially things like sub-artifacts, which we've kind of struggled with in the past, it means that we can really then start to build a lot more on top of that in terms of digitization and automation also within our TMFs. So I think it's a really it's going to be a lot of work, but it's a super important initiative to go digital. And I think the version 4 will be the first version where we have a digital TMF reference model.
Absolutely. And it's lovely to see all the comments coming in from Anne Ackley Pfeiffer and from Carol Fedline. Carol, make sure you're on make sure you volunteered, so then when we put the call out, we get you involved. And Oliver, that's very quick of you to put the believe sign from Ted Lasso, which is absolutely one of my nicest, one of the best ever. So
just to make it clear as well, like you have to go onto the CDISC website and go on to volunteer, but that do you need to specify an initiative, Karen, or that you want to run so far?
No, subject matter experts. Hey, am I
Okay.
supposed to be talking for 45 minutes or for 30 minutes?
No, it's talking for 30 minutes and then Q&A for 15.
Oh, okay. Oh, fantastic. I didn't realize that. Sorry, apologies. I thought 30 minutes, I was rounding it out nicely. It's just told me it's ending in 14 minutes. Well, we're going to have lots of time for Q&A then. So guys, come on. You need to get your thinking hats on and throw some questions at me. We're not out of time, and that's the problem. I thought we were out of time, and I just, sorry, apologies for that. That's completely my bad. Right, so come on. There must be questions that you want to ask Paul and I about where we're going, what we're doing, or maybe make some comments about where you think we have some challenges coming up. One of the things that I think, and now this is me thinking off the spur of the moment, because my next slide, because I timed it so perfectly. My next slide, thank you. I mean, I never get timing right. But one of the things I think that is a challenge for us is all the changing regulations. So there are lots of regulations out there that are coming into place around computerized systems, around GDPR, around AI and validation. There's lots of different things, like there's the European CTISC, and all of that affects the TMF. And I think one of the challenges we're going to have is trying to bring together all the regulations and make sure that the reference model version 4 isn't out of date the second it's in date.
Right.
And I'm not sure
exactly
they're doing that. I think maybe we need to get some regulatory people involved to make sure that those areas are covered.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially also around ICH E6R3, because that's still a little bit up in the air, and we need clarity on that too, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
In terms of essential documents and all of that.
In theory, ICH E6R3 was supposed to be out about October time. That's what Andy Fisher said to us. So
right, exactly. So we'll see. We haven't got a timeline yet, right?
No, we don't. Well, he sort of mentioned that, but that was about it. So
yeah,
right, we've got some questions.
Well, there's a bunch of questions there.
I know. Okay, I'm going to ask them, Paul. You can answer them. How about that? Does that work?
Sure. I think Chris wanted to ask them, but
oh, sorry, Chris. Sorry, Chris.
Amazing. You don't need me. I'm just sitting here enjoying the show in the background. So if you guys want to tackle one by one, go ahead. But yeah, we just got a slew of questions that came in, as is usually the case. Did you see one in particular, Karen, that you want to tackle first? You're the boss here.
Oh, I'm in control. Okay. So theoretical timeline for DDF. I mean, we've got version. Oh, that's really cool. Sorry, we've got version 4 or phase 4, haven't we, Paul, of DDF happening this year?
Yeah. So we're in sort of discussions to kind of work out exactly what our scope is in relation to DDF for the next version of DDF, which is version 4. Right now, the idea is that we would be primarily consuming information that's coming from other systems. And the go live for the next version of DDF is next year. And I'm not sure exactly when next year, but I would say probably not before mid 2025, but it could be later as well. But it's going to be an ongoing thing, because obviously it will continue to evolve, because it's a very it's a very big project, and so I think that we'll be working on sort of DDF integration for a number of years moving forward. And in fact, a lot of these initiatives are going to be quite lengthy. Same thing with defining standardized metadata and all of that. I mean, it's quite a big undertaking. It's going to take quite a lot of time to do that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the other challenge we're going to have, and Ross has put the comment up, which I think is true is one of the big challenges we're going to have is having everybody adopt whatever we bring out as a standard until the regulator turns around and says, we need this information. We need it to be, you need to do it this way. You see, the problem is that the TMF isn't like a submission. A submission goes to the regulators. A TMF doesn't actually have to go to the regulators. It might in the future, but right now it doesn't. I guess the only thing I would say from that perspective for us is that we are working very hard with all the vendors. And if we can get the vendors all on board in terms of supporting version 4 and supporting the standard, I think we'll be a long way. That's how we got there in the first place, because the vendors didn't have anything. And so they all went, oh, well, we'll use that. So we've helped them out significantly.
Right. But I think they, the vendors also need to be at the table, right? Because if we're putting in place a digital TMF reference model, then it's really important that the way we organize it and structure it is usable by the digital systems, that need to integrate it. So that's why, I think we're definitely going to be having a lot of discussions with the vendor community, as well as, of course, the pharma, biotech and CRO community.
No, absolutely. Pallavi's asked a question about, are we going to prioritize regulatory updates? I think I actually sort of covered that off in the sense that it's one of the things that I think is the most important, that we make sure we capture all of them. So we need to make sure that if there's something out there, that it's brought into the review process. Like EU CTR and CDISC is something that we've talked about, but we haven't actually done anything with. So
right, but I know in the charter, which is being finalised, there's a lot of references to all of the various different regulations that we need to look at and align with. So there's definitely been work done to kind of identify all of those different things. And so, the working group will definitely be looking at that. Yeah,
no, absolutely. One of the, so if I press that button, does it? Oh no, that doesn't do that. How do you get it to go on the screen? That was so cool.
There's a little share
that was Chris.
button if you want. So if you want to select a question, there's a little share button, and then there you go.
Oh, I really like this technology.
It's pretty cool, eh?
Cool. Absolutely. So Isabella, you asked about volunteering, which I'm sure many of you on this call are going, I really want to help because it's so much fun and I really have lots of time and I want to volunteer. What it's going to entail at the moment is generally an email will come out saying we're looking for volunteers for the risk initiative, the ISF initiative, whichever initiative it is. An email, if you volunteered recently, an email is going to come out, and then what you do is you will just reply to it, and then eventually we'll pull all the people together. So for version 4, it's going to be getting involved in zone teams, getting involved in separate teams. There might be a CTISC, EU CTR team. There might be a risk team. There might be all sorts of different teams that you can get involved with to feedback. So we are going to be needing a lot of people to help when it comes to version 4. And it's going to be kicking off in September, and then October is going to be like the proper presentation where we do it at the conference in Arizona. So come to Arizona, to Phoenix, to come and hear all about it. We had another question from Pallavi about risk assessments and risk-based QC. So there is this risk initiative. Sorry, I should have done that. There's this risk initiative that's been running, then the output's going to be available in October. So if there's anything that comes out of that, it will absolutely be included in the V4. V4 isn't going to include recommendations on how to do anything. V4 is going to be version 4. It's literally going to be the next version of the reference model. But there is this whole risk initiative, which is going to be a white paper and a whole bunch of tools that will be used to take a risk-based approach. And those tools will be updated to make sure they match version 4. Because that's one of the other things we need to do once we have version 4 is look at all the tools we have out there to make sure the implementation guide and the QC tool and all that sort of thing all match up with version 4.
Yeah. Questions still trickling in, Karen. Do you want to take a few more?
There is one there we haven't answered yet. Any date on the TMF QC course? Do you have a date on that, Karen?
No, the reason I didn't answer it because I haven't got a clue. No, I don't.
So you ignored it.
I just like it. No, very seriously, I'd say that if somebody wants to take the question, Chris, if you want to take the question and ask Dawn and Lisa, they will tell you, because they'll know that. So there was a question
Janet
from
will let you know. Yeah, Janet, I'll reach out to you personally once I reach out to Dawn and Co. and find out for you.
Unless Janet knows Dawn and Lisa, in which case myself, because Dawn and Lisa are people that will know. There was a question from Cecile about Cecil about keep forgetting. Any thoughts about the IRB's IECs getting together to standardize the documentations they generate? Now, that is definitely not going to be a TMF reference model thing. However, that might be a Transcelerate thing, and it might be an ICH thing. So I do think the spirit of standardization might drive this forward.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think we
It would be good, but yeah, it's not. It's a separate project, I think, altogether.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Carol was asking about how to encourage to get those who use other structures to transition. Well, I think the way we do that, in all honesty, is by making it a standard, by getting the regulators to talk about it as a standard. I mean, we had Torsten Stemler, who's the head of GCP inspection from BfArM, present. And by the way, he was Doc. He was, whoever didn't see him, he was the best regulator I have ever come across. He said "Great Scott" about 30 times, but he also said that he really thought standardization was the way to go, that everybody should be standardized, blah, blah, blah. So absolutely, completely on board in terms of standardizing, and he thought the sites should standardize too. So I think we are definitely going there. Yeah, I'm just looking down to see if there's anything else that we've missed out on.
A lot of people that want to volunteer, so that's good news, right, Karen?
Absolutely. Anybody who wants to volunteer, go onto the website, volunteer. And to the sorry, there was one. Apologies, there was one I just noticed from Rahul.
Yeah, the CDISC.
Main library important with TMF data on presence and get it anywhere. I'm not sure I really understand the question, Rahul, unfortunately.
But always, you can always.
So I think, I mean, maybe I can try and answer based on what I'm understanding. So the idea with the CDISC library is that there's an API available, and so it means that if you're using an eTMF system, and that eTMF system is able to connect to the library via the API, you can query it to not only understand things about the TMF reference model. So instead of keeping a copy of the TMF reference model in your system, you can actually just query the latest and greatest version online. But also you can query about other systems that may also be holding TMF relevant information, and get information about how they're calling that data and how it's structured. And so that's really useful to be able to set up interoperability. So I think the library is really important from a computer to computer interface standpoint, but also it's going to be important for humans too, right? Because you're going to be able to search for stuff and understand relationships between artifacts, and you're going to be able to see where maybe those artifacts are being used elsewhere as well. And you're going to be able to access all of the control terminology, so it'll give you all of the definitions and all of those things you need. So I think it's really gonna add a lot of value, and also it will enable us to do various different flavors of the reference model too. So you can say, well, for med device, these are the artifacts that make sense. For ISF, these are the artifacts. For even non-interventional studies, or even European study versus US study, these are the artifacts that make sense. So it's going to give us a way of being able to access subsets of the reference model as well. And of course, it's going to allow you to still export to Excel if you want to have an Excel spreadsheet. So I think there's a lot to it. And we're sort of working with CDISC right now to kind of properly scope all of the different use cases and make sure that we get the right tool in the end that's going to be really useful for the industry, both within eTMF systems, but also for humans who want to be able to access information.
So as a final, and we've finished, but we've got one very important question. Janice has asked, how do we sign up for the October 2024 meeting in Scottsdale, Arizona? So Paul, Chris, can we send out an email to everybody that was on here with details on how to join us in Scottsdale, please?
We'll find a way. Where there's a will, there's a way,
Chris,
right, Karen?
Chris, you'll take that as an action?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Okay,
see
great.
you all in Arizona. Of course, Arizona is very nice, close to Las Vegas, so maybe see you all in Vegas as well. Who knows?
and then we get to see a whole new round of pictures next year, Karen, when you're presenting an update on this session.
Well, thanks very much, Paul.
Absolutely outstanding.
Thank you, Karen. That was great. And thanks, Chris.